Alright guys, what is going on? Oink here, and today's video is going to be a little quick video on kind of continuing on last Sunday's theme of tuning, and I had a couple of people asking about the limited slip differential. So in this video I'm going to go into how to tune your limited slip differential and what it all means and all of that jazz. Today's subject is the Jaguar XKR Coupe, which I actually received as a gift, I think in possibly last week's video, so thank you. But I can't remember who it was. But thank you, whoever it was. Right, so first off, obviously you want to head into the drivetrain section of the tuning menu here. And you will find your standard differential and your fully customizable limited slip differential. Both there. Obviously the fully customizable one does require a purchase. So first off I'll talk about what the differential is. So when a car is cornering, let's say you just got your bog standard Toyota Corolla or whatever you might have, you know, and you're just on the roads and you're turning, basically when you go around a corner, the inside wheels and the outside wheels will turn at very slightly different speeds to, you know, make the car turn as best as possible. And basically the faster you do this, the more the differential will come into play. So if you go around a corner at breakneck speeds and, you know, the inside wheels are sort of, you know, got a lot less weight on them, then the car transfers power around to, you know, the left or the right drive wheels, depending on which one is on the inside, to kind of compensate for that. So what the limited slip differential means, and you can kind of get it from the name because it's limited, so it's limiting how much the differential can affect your car. Now, the reason you might want this is because in an instance where the inside wheels actually lift off the ground entirely, the way that the differential works is because of the amount of torque that goes in when the wheels are spinning freely, it thinks that it needs to put more power in there because, you know, those are the ones on the outside because, you know, they're the ones that are spinning the fastest. So it will transfer loads of power, or when I say loads, it will transfer more of its power to those wheels, thinking that those are the wheels that should be spinning fastest. And basically what you're doing there is losing a lot of your power on wheels that aren't even touching the ground, and therefore you lose traction and you will lose speed, you lose basically a lot of your power. So obviously this is a pretty big problem if you're race driving, because going around corners fast continuously can often result in, you know, slight lifts off the ground on the inside tyres. So that's the point of the limited slip differential. So if I go into tuning, the first one you see is initial torque. Now, what this setting means is how much torque is necessary for the limited slip differential to come into play. So this isn't for the standard differential, this is how much torque is needed for it to limit the differential. So if you're just driving along normally and you've got a limited slip diff on, it's not even gonna be on. It's like an off-on switch, basically, this initial torque. So this is how much torque is required to say turn it on now. So a low setting here means that you will need less torque for the limited slip diff to come into play. So obviously the more torque, the less likely it is that it's going to have any effect on anything, that it'll even turn on and limit anything. The resulting effects of the initial torque then is a lower initial torque means more likely and sudden changes during handling. So, you know, it means that it can come into play more often, and also when it's in play, it will be changing more often depending on your acceleration and your braking, because it's allowed to come into play more. So you're going to get more sudden changes, and, you know, the car's responsiveness and handling could suddenly change depending on you know, the surface and the way you're driving. So a higher initial torque means it's less likely to come into play, and you're going to have less changes to the handling and to the power distribution, which means it's going to be more general stability. But it also means because you're not allowing the differential to, you're not allowing the limited slip differential to come into play, it means you could get more understeer due to the problems with the differential, as I explained earlier. So moving on to the acceleration sensitivity, and I should point out now that the acceleration and the braking sensitivity settings are actually how the LSD is going to behave when activated. So remember, the initial torque is just how much torque is needed for the LSD to become activated. the acceleration sensitivity and the braking sensitivity is what it's going to do when it is activated. So we'll start with acceleration sensitivity. The lower the sensitivity, the less it's going to limit. So this is kind of reverse logic, I guess, and it takes a second or two just to get your head around it, but the less acceleration sensitivity means the less it's going to limit. So it kind of doesn't make sense in that way, but you've got to remember this is just how much it's limiting, not how much in general. So if it's got a lower acceleration sensitivity, that means it's limiting less when you're accelerating, which means that the standard differential can have more effect, and the more effect that has, you can have less stability, and the wheels can have more changeability. With a higher setting, there's going to be more limitation on what the differential can do, meaning that you'll have more stability, and the wheels will be spinning more at the same speed during acceleration. Again, with braking sensitivity, it's similar to acceleration sensitivity in the way that it works. So again, a lower setting means that there's going to be less limitation when you're braking. So the standard differential can come into play more with a lower sensitivity. With a higher sensitivity, it's going to limit how much the differential can have effect when you're braking. So with a higher setting on this one, if you had like 40 set on this one, that means when you're braking, the wheels are going to be more likely to spin at the same speed, and therefore you have more stability when you're braking, and again coming through corners braking. With a lower setting, as I said, the standard differential is allowed to act upon the car more, which means you're going to have generally less stability, but then again you'll also have less understeer, and that's generally the idea with the limited slip diff, is it's kind of more of a personal preference thing, and I guess also depending on the track and how it's going to be driving. But generally it's more of a personal preference thing, as whether you want more overall stability or whether you want more changeability and allow the car to change the wheel spins and so on and so forth. So it is a kind of balance, and it is something that you really need to play around with and find a setting that's just going to work for you. So I hope those sort of bits of information have helped you guys understand the limited slip diff, and hopefully you can find a setting that suits you and your car and your track. As always, on a Sunday as well, I'm doing my gift shoutouts. So thank you to, I guess that's Nick Dart. Sorry if I'm saying that wrong, for the McLaren MP4 12C, and I'm not actually sure how I'm going to say it, like Truce 7.3 or something like that, I guess. Fully tuned Gallardo LP560 in there. So thank you very much for you two, and I'll catch you guys next week. Peace.